Thank you very much, Paul. It's a pleasure to see so many of you here tonight interested in our tradition of civil discourse as we approach the election season. Many thanks, we've already indicated to the sponsors of this debate. Many, many thanks to Senator Stillman. That was a lovely reception you gave her. As many of you have heard me say before, years ago in the 80s, my husband and my family and I chose to move to Quaker Hill in Waterford because we sought a community that would be a wonderful place to live, to work, and raise our children. We found that. And it is with that memory and that understanding of the value of community that I have chosen to serve, to continue to serve in public life. In my last 10 years as a representative for the 38th District representing Waterford and Montville, it's been an honor, and I'm very honored to have the opportunity to work to serve as the next state senator from the 20th District. Thank you.
Please, no applause after that. If you could hold them to the end, I appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Fabica.
Thank you, Mr. Schweinier. And again, thank you to the sponsors of the debate, certainly our host with this wonderful facility, Representative Ritter. And most importantly, thank you to all of you to come out and listen to some of the dialogue that we're going to have this evening about some of the issues that are more important. I have served as first selectman in the town of East Lyme for the last 7 years, and 16 years prior to that, I served as an elected official both in zoning and finance, so I bring a municipal government experience, but also I share something with this Charter Oak facility in that I've operated a business, and I've operated a business for the last 31 years. It's a family-run business, and so my purpose for running is I really have 4. They're Matt, Allie, Hannah, and Olivia. Because I want them to have the same opportunities that I had, that my wife had. The opportunity to start a business from scratch, the opportunity to get a good education for their kids and those kids. Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
And that's your 60 seconds. Thank you. Right. We'll get back to that. The first question goes to Representative Ritter, and then we'll alternate back and forth, and we have a chance to rebuttal if they so choose. The question we got emailed to us from Lawrence Memorial Hospital, Representative Ritter. In 2010, the state imposed a tax on hospitals that now costs hospitals across Connecticut more than $250 million annually, of which L&M pays more than $8.2 million. As a state lawmaker, you will have an opportunity to take several steps on this, and the question is, 1, would you be willing to file a bill that would repeal the hospital tax? And 2, work and vote to maintain the property tax exemption for hospitals? And Representative Ritter.
Thank you. At this point, I would not commit to making a repeal of the hospital tax without a thorough understanding of what the state will do to replace the more than $350 million that we get from the federal government because of the hospital tax, and that is a big hole to fill. On the second question, as many of you in the room well know, this past legislative session, we had active discussion about ways that communities, cities like the City of New London would be able to expand their tax base. I worked hard in that discussion to bring at culmination a study of Connecticut's property tax and income tax, our entire tax system, to the legislature for the first time in years, and I'm looking forward for that to come back. I will be very interested to see what opportunities it offers for us to help our cities grow.
And Mr. Fanica, the question is, would you be willing to file a bill and work for it to repeal the hospital tax? And would you work to maintain the property tax exemption that hospitals now, nonprofit hospitals now receive?
Well, thank you very much. We have in this state a need for comprehensive tax reform. Not just piecemeal tax reform like reverse pilots and property tax exemptions, but we need to focus on our spending. We need to focus on what is happening in our budget, how we can reduce the cost of government so we don't need to look under every potential revenue rock to try to generate revenue through our state. So taxing nonprofits, taxing employers throughout the state is something that we need to kind of go easy on, and the residents too. I think that As far as the hospital tax, there are repercussions throughout the region when you have property tax exemptions within a specific city. So we need to look at the state and the district as a whole and work together and have that conversation. I believe that that whole conversation generated out of a large university in the other part of the state that wouldn't participate or couldn't participate with regard to helping out the town to pay for services that was provided. So what I would do is work to open a dialogue between all those universities, hospitals, nonprofits, and talk together to see that we can come to some solution.
And Representative Ritter, just to follow up on that question, you were a deputy majority leader when Speaker Sharkey introduced the idea of ending the property tax exemption for hospitals. Could you help us out whether you supported that, opposed it, sought to amend it? Perhaps clarify. Thank you.
Thank you. That discussion, as I indicated, was extremely contentious, and it was coupled with a discussion about our pilot system, payment in lieu of taxes, and how well the pilot system serves not just the cities, but every town in the state of Connecticut. In that discussion, to my mind, it became clear that we were not ready to pursue a single alternative without taking this comprehensive look. And for that reason, I supported instead ensuring that we do have the expertise provided to give us the full look at our tax system in Connecticut, property tax, income tax across cities and towns. And I believe it would have been foolhardy to pursue any single option.
All right, thank you. Next question, Mr. Formica, and we've got several questions on the high cost of childcare in Connecticut and what a burden it places on many young families to be able to come up with the money to pay for it. So just to get your impression, is there any role you could see for government that could help ease that burden with childcare that many families confront? And we start with Mr. Formica.
Thank you. I've had the opportunity to tour many of the facilities throughout the district with regard to providing child care and pre-K. I think we have to work to support our families, and that's what we have to do. Many of our families are working multiple jobs just to try to make it through. That goes back to the cutting of spendings and making our government more effective and efficient. But we do have to support the pre-K. We do have to support families wherever we can and support organizations like the United Way and TVCCA and the Child and Family Agency as they continue to provide those services that are so desperately needed for young couples in order for them to get out into the workforce. But we need to be able to provide housing opportunities. We need to be able to provide jobs. We need to be able to provide transportation initiatives. All of this is all connected together so that we have one connects to the other and we can solve these problems a little bit at a time.
And Representative Ritter, the question on how can the government or how can you help families that are facing these high child care costs?
I was very pleased this last session to complete the legislation that we needed to establish the Office of Early Childhood. And that a particular charge in that office is our ability to bring together both state regulations around child care, early child care, infant child care, and pre-K. And we have opportunities there to do that, to provide a system that is more universally accepted and more affordable. In addition, I've had extended conversations with many of our child care providers in this area and have had the opportunity to understand that there are things as a state we can do. The first one is to expand the portability of child care assistance so that towns and specific providers are not required by the terms of their state support to make decisions that only add to the expense of child care. So yes, there is a lot that we can continue to do.
Anything more on that, Mr. Formica, before we move on? Okay. Next question, Representative Ritter, and got a few questions on the announcement recently by Governor Malloy that he intends to convert the Seaside, former Seaside Center into a state park. So kind of lump them in together into, do you support that initiative, and do you think the state has sufficient information available to make that decision? And Representative Ritter.
Yes, I do support that decision. I feel that the town of Waterford and the previously designated preferred developer had extensive time to work out between them the proposals from the developer to see if they were acceptable to the town. When the town rejected the last proposal, it was an opportunity for the state to make the decision to keep the property and to, in the case of Governor Malloy, exercise his option to look at using it for a state park. That's a win for everybody in the state of Connecticut. We're not making any more coastal or shoreline property anymore, and it is a very big opportunity for everybody. I want to also put out a cautionary word, though. We heard the governor commit the resources to thoroughly study and examine not just the property, but those buildings, determine what can be used, the best use for them, and what to do with what can't be used. And the town of Waterford has been instructed to work carefully with the governor to make that happen. I want to encourage everyone in the town of Waterford to do that. There's been some political discussion about it, and I would just like to say we need to keep our eye on the result, not the politics.
And Mr. Famik, your opinion on the Seaside announcement of last week turning it into a state park?
Well, I mean, it's interesting that we have to keep our eye on the results and not the politics when 4 weeks before the election we come out with a plan that is underthought at the very best. Listen, Seaside's been around a long time. We know that the opportunity to have it develop's been around a long time. We know that there are issues with the contract with the developer, that he's got kind of an open-ended, long-term contract that he's taken advantage of. We know that there's been many proposals brought before the town of Waterford to determine what is the highest and best use of that property. But we also know that we need jobs, we need tax base, and we need opportunity that property could provide. Being at a park, that could be a wonderful opportunity, but we don't know the cost. We don't know the cost of that renovation or removal of those buildings. We don't know the cost of the seawall. We don't know the cost of the beach. We don't know the cost of the parking. Want to look at Rocky Neck State Park? On a busy weekend in the summer, there's parking lined up and down the street. There's a cottage industry, people that make money on parking spaces. Is that what the neighborhood wants there in that? Or would a high-end condominium, a high-end resort, a high-end lower use may be the best way to go? I don't know. But I think that the town of Waterford needs to be involved. And I didn't think that those things, as they were brought forward by the governor and the legislative body that attended with them, made a lot of sense. I thought it was very political.
Representative Ritter.
Thank you very much. I'm surprised, actually, to hear that assessment that perhaps people in the town of Waterford would have preferred a commercial development for this property. I've been up and down the streets in that district, not just for years, but also most recently attended hours of meetings that the town diligently conducted, its Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as understood the volumes of paperwork that have been submitted on this. And I can assure you that the people in that neighborhood and the people in Waterford are not interested in a commercial development there. And I am very pleased to understand that we will be doing our best to see that that does not happen.
And we'll give Mr. Famik another shot before we move to another question.
Thank you very much. And the other part of this, too, is that the approval process or disapproval process by the developer in this instance is not yet complete. He was disapproved to move this forward by the Planning and Zoning Commission in Waterford, but filed an appeal in state court. So my question is, should that appeal be sustained? Do we have a park and a resort? Do we have both? Or do we have lawyers continuing to spend our hard-earned tax monies trying to determine it? And if there was such a rush, why now? Why not make it a park a year ago, 6 months ago, when the same opportunity? So let's wait for the process to go out. Let's talk to the entire town of Waterford and see what they'd like to do. Perhaps some people would like help paying for that beautiful new school systems that they put in.
All right, thank you. We're going to move to the next question. Mr. Famik, it's to you. How would you encourage, and it's from the Chamber of Commerce, by the way, how would you encourage more businesses to come into your prospective towns in the district to reduce the tax burden on homeowners and create more jobs in southeastern Connecticut? And Mr. Famik, first crack at that one.
Thank you very much. Well, as I said, I've been creating jobs in East Lyme since 1983, and I would continue to work to develop the business environment, which I think is missing. We have an environment for business, and we know that small business is the economic engine that drives jobs, whether it's here in Connecticut or in California. So we have to create that environment. And the state legislature over the last few years have not created an environment friendly to create jobs. What we did in East Lyme is to give people a sense of place. We redeveloped our village district where it was pedestrian friendly. We provided the opportunity for housing to locate just off the village district so that people not only could buy affordable housing and be in affordable housing and encourage young people and retirees to come in and live there, but provide an economic stimulus to our village district by living 300 feet or so away from our main street. We would continue to support that opportunity and continue to support creating a sense of place. We need to lower the amount of regulations that exist on small business. We need to go back to our spending and lower our tax code, reform our tax code. I worked very hard on the Central Rail Corridor. Remember, 2 years ago, we did not get that Taggart grant. So the Council of Governments kept that alive. And we worked very hard. That Central Rail Corridor will provide the opportunity for jobs as it opens up the Port of New London and opens up those stops in Norwich and Willimantic and finds its way up. So that's the beginning of our opportunity. And that's where I would continue to work.
Thank you. And Representative, how would you go about trying to encourage more businesses to come into the district, helping reduce the tax burden on homeowners and create some jobs in the district? Representative Ritter.
Our state needs more jobs. That is correct. It needs those jobs to provide support for our cities and towns and for our families. The best way we can do that is to create a regulatory environment in Connecticut that is conducive to business growth and development. I've been going door to door talking to business owners about my game-changing proposal that I believe will give Connecticut's regulatory environment a real makeover. Our state currently has a regulations review committee. You might think that this committee reviews outdated and burdensome regulations, but you're wrong. I will give that committee an overhaul so that it does just that, so that it offers business owners a public forum to come forward specifically with the regulations that they believe are hurting our state's business climate and stifling development. Present them to legislators, make their case, and give legislators and the public the opportunity to review them, to rewrite them, or to eliminate them. This has a potential for the state of Connecticut to change our regulatory environment in a drastic way. I believe it'll be a game changer for us in Connecticut, and I think it's something that I can accomplish. I'm looking forward to accomplishing as your next state senator in the 20th district, not just for Eastern Connecticut and Southeastern Connecticut, for all of us in the state of Connecticut.
Thank you. Mr. Famik, anything to add?
You know, I just find it curious that we spend a long period of time in our state developing regulations that are not promoting business, and then wanting to take an opportunity to create a committee to look at those regulations and to change them. Who better to work on the business district, the business regulations, than someone who's been in business for 31 years? Who better to bring the opportunity to understand Main Street than someone who's been in business for 31 years and create that opportunity in the Senate? So I look forward to having that opportunity should you choose.
Representative Ritter, this time you get the last word on the question. Representative Ritter.
Thank you. And I would like to emphasize my point that right now we don't have that opportunity. And I will be looking forward to Mr. Formica, to business owners, to representatives from all over the state when they can come to a specific forum that we have to accomplish these changes. We don't have that ability right now. And as I committed to you, as the next state senator from the 20th district, I am looking forward to doing that so that we can have those conversations. And I believe, as I believe my opponent believes, they'll be productive and that they will be effective.
All right, thank you. We'll move to the next question to Representative Ritter. Maybe now we could show the times to the candidates that they have left. Take just a second to do that. Representative Ritter, that's your time. And
Not bad, 17.
Pretty, about 17 minutes each. These
06
guys
to
are
1709.
right on top of it. Okay.
I thought I was talking a lot.
Representative Ritter, what is your opinion on the implementation of the Common Core in our Connecticut schools? Do you believe that it is a beneficial or harmful system for the evaluation of our students and teachers? So the question is Common Core. Representative Ritter.
Thank you. I believe that any curriculum that provides a 21st century education for our kids, for our children, so that they will be prepared to meet the challenges of the 21st century in ways that enable them to support their families and provide a safe and secure economic future is a good thing. I believe that is what education should be doing. That said, I have been pleased and honored to be supported by teachers, representatives of teachers, administrators, parents, families who understand that to get there, to implement the Common Core and to make the changes that we need to in the school environment in order to make it work, they need to work together. We slowed down our approach in the state, and I absolutely endorse that. It was necessary. But as I said, I very much support the opportunity to provide that 21st century education for our kids.
Thank you. Mr. Famika.
Thank you, sir. Whether you're in business or you're in family or whether you're in education, you must have goals to which you'd like to achieve. You must have standards to which you'd like to set. And the Common Core makes an attempt to do that. But I don't think that one size fits all. And I think the biggest problem with the Common Core, it's become a political issue. And it's been implemented poorly. I've gone around the district and spoken to many of the superintendents of schools to get their viewpoint. They're on the street, they're in the trenches, they know what's happening in their school districts. So I've had the opportunity to talk with them about what we should do. Tying teacher evaluations to the Common Core standards may or may not be the proper way to proceed. What we want are kids that learn. We want to give them an opportunity to learn, not to learn how to take tests, but to learn and to be the best they can be. And that's what we have great teachers in this district. We have great educators in this district and throughout Connecticut. And there's no reason that we just can't make our kids excel. I had the opportunity to read today, Winthrop School, first graders. Bright, dynamic kids. Bright, dynamic kids. It was just a pleasure to be there and read. So we have good opportunities in this state. But let's talk about these things together. Let's talk about how we implement them that makes more sense. And let's all reach for the stars because we can attain that. And that's what we need. Education is so important for our future.
Thank you. Any response, Representative Ritter? All right, let's move to the next question. We got a couple of questions on the gun control legislation that was passed by the legislature. And the question being whether the candidates are satisfied with that legislation. If not, what changes would they seek? And we begin with Mr. Famika.
Thank you. I think that the first thing we should do is to review the legislation and take a look at what's worked. We all know that horrible, unspeakable tragedy that occurred and the environment that law was passed under. It was very stressful. I couldn't imagine being up there to do that, nor could I imagine the suffering and pain that went around that. But I think it's now that some time has gone by, let's take a look at it. Let's see what needs to be amended. Let's increase the opportunity to provide treatment for those that are mentally ill, those that don't have the capacity to understand. Let's get early identification about those types of problems so that we can understand what we're doing. And then let's not make criminals out of our regular law-abiding citizens. There's got to be a way where we can provide safety and security. But I think, again, it goes back to the last question. It's about education. And let's educate. So, thank you.
Representative Ritter.
Thank you. I voted for and support the bill that we passed. I am not interested in supporting measures that would weaken that bill. The public, the sensible, common sense issues that we put into that bill to protect the public are absolutely important, and I am not interested in seeing them weakened in any way. I would like to point out, and I know my opponent is interested in seeing the results, that recently we have had an opportunity to review some results. And a couple of facts, actually, I wrote them down. By April of 2014, as a result of these measures specifically, more than 1,700 pistol permits statewide have been revoked from those who pose a danger to themselves or others. A laudable goal. I'm pleased to see that happening. 210 people have been barred from buying rifles or shotguns because they failed a background check. Yes, it is working. Other areas for us to take a look at? I am very concerned about a few things that we did not have the time to address. The main one being domestic violence and issues around providing protections for the victims of domestic violence and restrictions for those that might choose to engage in domestic violence. There's been a lot of news about that, and I think that as a public safety issue, it's important. Also, our urban areas still plagued with issues of violence related to handguns. We should not stop being vigilant in protecting the public.
Thank you. The next question goes to Representative Ritter. Would you support a proposal to move new state employees to the from a defined benefit pension to 401k type savings? Well, I guess that's essentially the question. Would you support that conversion for new employees in order to try to save some state spending?
No. Right now, I believe that we have in place sufficient plans to fully fund our pension plan. How do we do it? We make the minimum payments plus. Take the payments that are actuarially determined to fully fund our pension plan according to schedule, pay a little bit more every year, and we will, ahead of schedule, get to where we need to be. The difficulty with the 401k type arrangement have yet really to be determined as we look at what's happening to our retiree population. I'm hearing from more and more people every day terrified about what is going to happen to their income and to their lives when they retire. The reason? Because they are tied only to the contributions they made to their 401k pension plan.
Thank you. Mr. Ramika.
Thank you. I think the first thing we need to do to answer this question is to evaluate the cost benefit, whether it makes sense to move to a defined contribution plan versus a defined benefit plan. And let's see what we're up against. We know we're already way behind the eight ball. We already know that we've not made our payments and sustained our obligations. So we definitely need to add more payments to the principal to get caught up. But that goes with cutting spending. That goes with being more effective in government. That goes with having conversations with all parties so that we can figure it out. Teachers have a pension that is severely underfunded, but they don't collect Social Security. Is there an opportunity to begin going forward for Social Security with teachers in conjunction with their pension plan? Should we look at that? Does that make cost-effective sense? I don't know. But I think we need to study these types of efforts to see how we can effectively use our dollars to go forward. And there are other strategies that we can use, but the private sector is using the defined contribution plan, and it's working out pretty well.
Thank you. And our next question goes to Mr. Formica, and this concerns an issue that's become an issue in the gubernatorial campaign, and that's the prisoner incentive program that was passed under Governor Malloy, which offers the opportunity for prisoners to win their early release if they participate in various rehabilitative programs. The question to the candidates is, what is your position on early release? Would you support a repeal or changes to that program? And we begin with Mr. Formica.
Yeah, I think we have a very good commissioner of the Department of Correction. I think he is leading the department very well. He seems to be dynamic. So what I think we should do is to make sure that we keep strong laws to keep people punished when they provide and they break the law. The early release may work. It may work for some particular people. There's been some issues with some people on that. But overall, I think we need to take a look at it. And I think that, I may vote to look at it both ways and see where we're going to come up.
Thank you. Representative Ritter on the early release program.
In 2010, I voted for Connecticut to join 44 other states in the country in instituting a program for early release, and subsequently voted a few years after that to look again at the criteria for release and to make sure that it was clear. Since then, we have seen a dramatic drop in Connecticut in our crime rates. Actually, they're now reported to be at the lowest rate since sometime in the 60s. Murders, particularly, are at a 40-year low. The early release program in Connecticut was specifically designed and is still designed to absolutely exempt criminals who have convicted violent crimes, who have convicted crimes of severe property crimes as well, and to keep them from qualifying, as well as prisoners who are unable to maintain behavioral standards while they are incarcerated. It is also designed to provide an effective opportunity for people to rejoin society and reduce recidivism, and it's working. Our population has dropped by 5% thanks to this opportunity. Should we take a look at it again? Sure. We should always be looking at programs that deal with the public safety, and I have no problem doing that as well. But I will tell you that I support the program.
All right, thank you. Next question to Representative Ritter. Are you concerned, and this is from the Chamber of Commerce, another question from the Chamber. Are you concerned with how many Connecticut residents are retiring and moving out of Connecticut to states with lower taxes? Connecticut has provided them with employment and educated their children. However, they feel Connecticut is way too expensive to live in retirement. Do you feel this is an issue, and what would be your plan to try to keep residents in Connecticut? And it's Representative Ritter's turn.
Thank you. I grew up in New York State. When I grew up, even in the 50s and the 60s, this was a constant discussion point. And I never could figure out how we would effectively change the climate in Connecticut or New England to make it a climate that would be more attractive to the retiring population. Some days when I wake up with aches and pains in my knees and hips, I have the same thoughts. I don't know how to change the climate. And that is a factor, absolutely. It is more expensive to live in a part of the country where you have to heat your home a large portion of the year, where you have to build foundations and roads that withstand frost and withstand the weather that we have that is far more extreme. It is also true that in Connecticut, we have one of the highest average incomes in the country to help people to be able to support themselves as they live that way. Are those things that we can change right away? No, we can't change the climate. We are not going to be able to make some people no longer want to live in a warmer climate, and I don't have an answer for them.
Mr. Formica.
Well, people vote with their feet not only to be warm, they also vote with their feet to get away from ineffective state government. High spending, high taxes, and we need to create that opportunity where people want to be here. 25% of our workforce in the state is 55 and over. We can't afford more people leaving. The recent poll that stated that close to 50% of people would leave this state if they were able. That's not something that we need to have. We need to turn that around. We need to make sure that people stay here. We need to focus on keeping our young people here, focus on jobs and transportation, and create a better tax structure so that it's easier for them to stay here and enjoy their retirement.
So Representative Ritter, Mr. Formica thinks it has also something to do with our government.
Yep. And thank you for that. I've already talked about the need for more jobs and for a more positive regulatory environment here in Connecticut for our small businesses, and presented a solution for that, an opportunity for those businesses to be able to participate in bettering the situation, in working on those regulations. And as I said, I'm looking forward to working on that as your next state senator. Connecticut does pay very well, and it costs a lot to live here. Those are facts that are not going to be changed. other things Connecticut has to offer, and I talk to people a lot about this because I spent many years living in states far south of the state of Connecticut. We also have the best system of public education in the country. We offer services to help our people stay at home, age in place, should they choose to do that. And I'm proud of those services. I am proud that we have that opportunity here for our seniors, and I will work hard to keep it and to keep it strong.
Anything further on that one, Mr. Formica?
Connecticut ranks 46th in best or worst states to make a living, 49th in credit quality. We need to change how we do business in this state, and that will keep more people here.
All right, can we show some time situation to our candidates? 10 minutes for Representative Ritter, and 11 and a half minutes, so we're not too far off. And you get the next question, Mr. Formica.
Thank you, sir.
What is your position on the trend we have seen in Connecticut to some hospitals converting from nonprofit to for-profit? Should the state take a position on this or leave this to the market? And Mr. Formica, you have the first crack at that.
Well, I think we should leave it to the market, but we also have to make sure that we have vibrant health care within our state. I think we need to focus on health care and not sick care, and I think we have to make sure that our hospitals are able to provide all of that. And our last question early on talked about the extreme costs that were put on our hospitals and the pressures that they're under. So I think that what we have to do is to make sure that our healthcare system is vibrant, is secure, and is working. And if that is the market for profit and nonprofit, provided that everyone has the opportunity for care, then that's what we have to do.
Representative Ritter.
All good goals for our hospitals. But to look at the question, the conversion from not-for-profit to for-profit, I worked hard in the last session to pass a bill that is now the law that requires participation of the community in that process when those proposals first come to the community to convert a hospital. And that's very important. Our hospitals provide valuable community services in every city and town where they are located. Those services must be properly evaluated by the public, and I was pleased to be able to offer that opportunity. I believe also we're going to be taking a little more look at that in the future and see how that's working. Right now in the city of Waterbury, and I think it might be either tomorrow or next week, we're going to be able to see for the first time how well that's working. I'm looking forward to continuing to examine this question because, as I said, those community services and the presence of those hospitals' employers are vital to all of us.
Thank you. Next question, Representative Ritter. One of our questionnaires points out that during elections, they often hear that there's too much regulation and red tape in government. They'd like to know if our candidates agree, and do they have any specific regulations or red tape that they would propose changing? And we begin with Representative Ritter.
Thank you. I'd like to think back a little bit to my proposal that I talked about earlier. My intention to provide an established structure for businesses, for business owners to come to the legislature with their specific requests regarding regulations that they find burdensome and difficult, over-regulation or stifling to their economic development and growth, because I think that is an opportunity for us to significantly change the discussion around regulation in Connecticut, and I'm looking forward to making this proposal a reality.
Thank you. And Mr. Formica, any ideas for reducing, or specific ideas for reducing regulation or eliminating red tape?
Well, I think some of the things that we've tried in East Lyme is to try to streamline our software process so that when you're getting permits, you have a one opportunity to apply, and you can go through the process there. That saves the businesses time, and it also saves the government time. We need to really focus on a statewide level. The cost of doing business and the amount of opportunity that it takes to go through these regulatory processes. It takes sometimes up to a year to get permits from some of these agencies. We have time delays. We talked about sick pay that was mandated on businesses. Businesses know that when people are sick, nobody wants people there when they're sick. I'm a small business. We pay all of those things. I don't think it's up to the government to talk about that. I think it's up to the capital markets to deal with that. So I think Representative Ritter's idea of a regulatory review makes some sense, but why haven't we been doing that for the last few years?
Next question to Mr. Formica. Questioner points out that Tom Foley, Republican candidate for governor, recently proposed money following the child for our education system in our urban areas, basically a voucher system of school choice. And the questioner wants to know where our candidates stand on that proposal, and we begin with Mr. Formica.
I don't have a particular stand on that proposal. I'm not sure what Mr. Foley is doing. But for me, I like to make sure that we have quality education for every youngster and whatever we need to do. There's opportunities to provide that, and that's where I am on that.
All right, thank you. Representative Ritter, voucher system.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure what Mr. Foley intends either, but I'll speak for a moment on the voucher system. I am not in favor of a voucher system that would continually chip away at that excellent, nationally leading system of public education that we have here in Connecticut. Just in this district, we have opportunities for magnet school choice, charter school choice right now. Fortunately for us, the charter school that we have in New London that we are most proud of has done well, but that has not been the case of everyone in the state of Connecticut. Charter schools originally were charged to bring and highlight opportunities to look at different ways to get things done so that the public schools could take a look at them and use those best practices only. We have plenty to look at now, and we also have, unfortunately, quite a few that I don't think we want to bring to our public education system. And so, no, I would not support a voucher program, such as I believe Mr. Foley may be suggesting.
Thank you, Representative Ritter. We had a few questions on economic development. I'm going to try to get to a couple more of those before we wrap up tonight. Our questioner points out, and this will be to Representative Ritter, our questioner points out that Governor Malloy is a very aggressive business program with direct state intervention. He points to the First 5 program, which was extended to more businesses, providing millions of dollars incentives to large companies to keep them in Connecticut or attract them to Connecticut, and a small business express program providing direct grants and loans to small businesses. So the question wants to hear the candidates' take on that approach to trying to generate economic development in the state. We begin with Representative Ritter.
Thank you. The thing to realize about those programs is they do a very, very important thing for the state of Connecticut. They help our state be competitive. In today's world, Connecticut not only has to compete against our immediately surrounding states for businesses, for locations and jobs, but with every other one of the 49 states in the country, and actually has to compete globally. Those programs help our businesses do that. They give them a step up to help that happen, to keep jobs in the state of Connecticut. And that is one of the most positive things, I believe, that can happen from the governor's perspective. I also wish, and I don't have it with me here, I could read to you the list of local companies that have taken advantage of these programs, the Small Business Express most particularly. I've had the opportunity to work with constituents as they've gone through the program, and they've been very pleased. So again, support for our businesses, large and small, to keep Connecticut competitive, and I'm very pleased to see the governor taking these steps.
Mr. Formica, your take on those programs.
I think what we need to do is continue to invest in the environment that creates the opportunity for business and small business. I think some of the First 5 and some of the other things, it's suspect depending on what the cost of per job is, and is that going to create the correct environment to sustain jobs throughout the state of Connecticut. I think we'd rather focus on an effective government, better transportation system, better housing, Let's make sure that we get job centers that we can support and get our people to and from. We have large companies that are leaving our state. So we have to create the opportunity. So some of these things are a good beginning. But I think they need to be expanded, and I think we need to eliminate the amount of time that some of them take in order to become effective and to get the money into people's hands.
All right, thank you. And the next question goes to Mr. Formica, and I have a couple of questions that were targeted to the candidates, so I'll kind of go first with Mr. Formica, and certainly Representative Ritter, you can respond if you so choose. The question to Mr. Formica is, in the 20th district towns outside of your own town that you serve as First Selectman, East Lyme, what have you been involved with or done to help the area? And that's the question specifically for Mr. Formica.
Well, as chairman of the Council of Governments, which is an organization that where 21 mayors and first selectmen meet on a monthly basis to talk about regional issues, many things have had the opportunity to go up. My neighboring town of Waterford, we did a reval program. For example, when you have to have revaluation every 4 years, well, we bid that together. Their 9,000 homes, our 9,000 homes, and we were able to save $100,000 for each of our communities by working together. We patrol the river and work together on some regional issues. But I think most importantly, when I came in, we have, according to the Southeastern Connecticut Water Authority, a 10 million gallon per day water shortfall expected in our state in the next 20 years. In East Lyme, we had a particular issue with water shortfall, having mandatory conservation every summer. So I worked together with the Council of Governments, the Mohegan Tribe, who had just completed a regional interconnection, to understand how we could do that. So with the Council of Governments, we created a regional water committee made up of mayors and first selectmen throughout the district. We then had a technical committee attached to that regional water committee that identified the needs of 23 towns in southeastern Connecticut. And the regional interconnection that came as a part of that, from East Lyme to New London to their water supply, where we, in the wintertime, when we have excess water, send them the water, but in the summertime when we have short falls, they return the water to us. That solves our problem. The 23-town technical committee looked at the supply in Norwich, the supply in Groton, and future interconnections. So hopefully in the next 15 years, prior to this 10 million gallon per day shortfall, we'll be able to move water through interconnects in the north and the east and the west throughout the 23-town district. And we can argue about taxes and regulations all day long. But if you don't have a control of water and a supply of fresh water and a control of wastewater, there's going to be no business nor residents here. So I think that's probably the major thing that I've done. We can go into more specifics.
Well, Representative, do you want to reply to that or go to your specific question?
Just as a quick reply, I'm glad to see that the Council of Governments is doing the job that statutorily they were established to do many, many, many years ago. Because regionalization, in my opinion, is an absolute key, ultimately, to our economic future, as well as some of the opportunities that I've been talking about for business growth in our economic climate. And the reason we have 169 towns in Connecticut, I have been a fervent and consistent advocate of regionalization as every opportunity has presented itself, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do that.
And the specific question to Representative Ritter from our audience member is, what do you consider your top two most important accomplishments as a legislator? Representative Ritter.
I have to think for a minute about that. So until recently, it was a fairly quick answer because I am very proud of the work I did leading the legislature to create the health insurance exchange. Something that has cut our health insurance uninsured rate in Connecticut in half and brought insurance opportunities to hundreds of thousands of people. I am very proud of that. And I think that it's something that the state of Connecticut correctly stepped forward and took immediate advantage of once the Affordable Care Act was passed here in the country. on the other hand, in the last 2 years, I have enjoyed tremendously the opportunity to work with my colleagues across the aisle and in both the Senate and the House, and pass legislation that has been very meaningful. Our young people, most particularly on our college campuses and universities, are now protected and provided services for in the instances of sexual assault. We will be seeing those rates go down, and I'm really very proud of that work. And I've got to add, I'm proud of where we're going to go with Seaside. So that's a tough question to answer.
Well, that's 3. We'll let that slip. Any response, Mr. Formica?
The question was Mrs. Ritter's?
Yeah, what she consider her best accomplishments.
You know, Mrs. Ritter has been in the General Assembly for 10 years. To have 2 top accomplishments, I think, is wonderful.
I only gave her 2.
Teasing.
I only gave her 2 to be
I'm
fair.
teasing. But listen, Representative Ritter has been there a long time and has done some things, and her work in healthcare, everybody knows about that. But there's also an opportunity that we need to do and move forward, and that is working together. And I can say that I'm most proud of taking the politics out of where we were in East Lyme after contentiousness that was there when I got there, and worked on the process and worked across party lines. And so that's what we need to do too. Thank you.
Can we again check our times? We're getting towards the end of the hour, and how are we doing? Okay, Representative Ritter, a little over 4 minutes. And 6 minutes for Mr. Formica, and that's appropriate because the next question to Mr. Formica, and the questioner wants to know what would be your top transportation priorities for the 20th district that you would work for in Hartford if elected?
Well, I think that you've heard me talk a little bit about the Central Rail Corridor. That was something that we worked on to keep alive, and the congressman, through the work of Congressman Courtney, and in conjunction with mayors and first selectmen throughout the southeastern Connecticut, we were able to get a grant that will open up that rail line. That provides opportunity for freight. If you don't know, you need 286,000 pounds for a freight car to travel up that line, and that will open up that rail line from the Port of New London up through Stafford Springs, Palmer, and into Montreal. It will open up opportunities not only for freight through Norwich and Willimantic, but also opportunities for passenger rail. And I've talked to Commissioner Redeker about the opportunity for providing us 2 passenger train cars to provide a pilot program to see how we can do. He is for that. He has committed that to us, both to CCM and again at the awarding of the grant that the congressman had. So that's the first step. Why is that important? We need to work on the Coast Guard Museum and focusing and enhancing on New London. I think New London is a jewel and a gem, and I've fallen in love with New London as I've campaigned through there for the last 4 or 5 months. It's a great city, and it has so much to offer, and it could be the fulcrum of the entire district. They have rail, they have boat, they have opportunity for traffic and vehicle and transportation initiatives. So I would work on that Central Rail Corridor. I would enhance it with additional dollars to see if passenger could go through there, and work on the Port of New London, which would allow that. Certainly I-95 needs some work. I've been working on the Exit 74 interchange, which is the largest commercial piece of property left really in southeastern Connecticut, to develop that as a commercial opportunity and work as a public-private partnership where the developer comes in and develops their land and puts in $7 or $8 million to help renovate that exit ramp. Many of you have gone down Exit 74 and you're going 60 miles an hour. You have about 11 feet to make that turn. We need to do something with that. That's the only unsignalized exit ramp that creates a lot of danger. So we need to work on our streets. We need to work on our roads. We know that the transportation dollars have not been used where they should be. Gas taxes have been diverted to the general fund. We need to really work on our infrastructure, and that's what's important. So it's a comprehensive question. It translates beyond the 20th district, and I would definitely work on all of those items because they bring housing, they bring jobs, and they bring opportunity.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Ritter, your transportation priorities?
Thank you. I particularly want to acknowledge that Mr. Formica's generous understanding that Congressman Courtney has really been driving the train on that train line, and I'm very pleased to see the progress. For New London, the opportunity to tie that, as we've heard, to what will become a major transportation center and bring commercial development is outstanding. There may be opportunities to expand that line, and we will be taking advantage of every one of them. And I've been pleased to be every step of the way along with them. I do have some concerns about some of the options that my opponent has been discussing, because sometimes it's tempting in towns right now to take development opportunities that in fact are harmful to many of our businesses, our existing businesses that are there. And I have concerns when I see large industrial tracts like the one at Exit 74, and that potentially could go that way, could take small businesses, literally take their business and take them out. I understand that there are opportunities there, but I think you have to be very careful how you couch those opportunities when in fact all they do is move a potential commercial opportunity from one location to the next, sometimes across town, away from small businesses, sometimes from town to town. The real issue there is our property tax system. We've talked about it already, but again, the regional solution is going to be the only thing that's going to get us there.
Any response, Mr. Formica?
Yes, we knew that you can get people here by train, and that's the future. But what happens when they land on the platform? How do they move around? Our bus transportation system needs to be enhanced and improved, to be more regional and more inclusive. To that end, the members of the Council of Governments, and I talk a lot about that because we have conversations about economic development here in southeastern and eastern Connecticut. We decided that we need to beef that up to a more regional solution. So mayors and first selectmen now populate the board of seats, so the decision makers are there. I happen to be one of them, and I support that. I have, as a matter of fact, spoken to many small business communities throughout the town of East Lyme when the Costco development came in. That Costco development and ensuing 425,000 square feet of retail and the residential units on the back was approved in 2008. And because of the economy, they were just able to come in here. So as a leader and as a first selectman, that is a regional store. If that Costco located in Waterford, I'm sure people would go there from East Lyme and Saybrook. If it located in Saybrook or Westbrook, I'm sure people from East Lyme and Waterford would go down there. So my opinion was, let's talk to the business community and have a strategy about how we deal with it. I have a small business less than a quarter of a mile away from that. So I'm very mindful of the concerns that the representative has. But I'm also looking at the tax implications. And once it build out, the town of East Lyme will gain a net tax revenue of $1.5 million to $1.7 million, which would go a long way to fostering economic development in and around that. And that public-private partnership will help to improve the transportation corridor within there, changing bridges and the water supply. So, and the property tax, there are two things that we need to think about. One, certainly we need to look at that. That has to be part of comprehensive tax reform. But that's an education cost. The state decided not to fund their portion of education many, many years ago. And so they need to fund and deal with education so that the property tax in most of the towns, some of the towns in our district, have 80% of their budget go to education costs. So we need to deal with that as well.
Thank you. And Representative Ritter, if you want to, there was another question on property tax. Mr. Formica already talked about that and wanted to give you the opportunity before we move to final questions. If you wanted to elaborate at all on the property tax and what reform you might be looking at.
All of our cities and towns are under intense pressure on their property tax. There's no other story there. In terms of opportunities to relieve that. One of the most immediate, in my opinion, is the state's funding of the special education programs that indeed are mandated by those towns. We do not fully fund those. I believe when it comes to upping the state's obligation to do that, that should be the first place that we look, because it would be the fairest across all of our cities and towns, and is something that could be done with some assurance that it would be the fairest way to do it relatively quickly. I am, in the meantime, looking forward to that information that we get from that tax survey, because I think indeed the time has come. And the reason that we worked hard to produce the survey, to require that it happen, is so that we can go ahead and do this. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of the debate part. Both our candidates did a great job. They're both under a minute left in their time, so they did a great job managing their 24 minutes. And by a flip of the coin, the order of our closing statements, and they'll have up to 90 seconds, will be Mr. Formica going first, and then Representative Ritter. Mr. Formica, your
Thank you
closing
very much.
statements.
And thank you very much for the opportunity. Not only for the opportunity to be here tonight to speak candidly about issues and our differences, but for the opportunity to be part of the process. I've enjoyed my time in the town of East Lyme, and I think we've been effective. We've worked hard to work with people to take politics out of the equation and work on enhancing the process. We've worked with both sides, all sides, and we've been inclusive to try to do the best we can to move the entire town of East Lyme forward. I look forward to taking those successes throughout the 20th District. There's many opportunities. You can look at the last few years and decide for yourself on the state level. Do you like how things are? Are you happy with how the taxes are? The state does not collect any property tax. The towns collect all the property taxes. But yet the state dictates how we are supposed to handle and pay and all the pressures that our property taxes generate. So we've worked hard to cut spending, to reduce the taxes. Our average tax increase over the last few years have been 1.6% in the town of East Lyme. Our health care costs have been 2% over the last 5 years in the town of East Lyme. I look forward to bringing and being effective and bringing effective ideas to state government, and that's what we hope to do. That's to continue putting our ideas into action as we have in East Lyme, that we will do for the state of Connecticut and work for everybody in the 20th District. And one last point. As a mayor and first selectman, I'm in a unique position to be able to work with each and every one of the leaders of the town and understand what they're in. So thank you to Representative Ritter and to everybody for this opportunity, and I look forward to working for you as your next senator.
Representative Ritter.
Thank you. You've been a great audience tonight. Thank you very much. I've chosen to pursue an opportunity to serve in the state Senate because I believe I've been effective in representing my two towns, the towns of Waterford and Montville, in the House. In doing my job, I've built a reputation for working collaboratively with my colleagues, a reputation for working across the aisle in both the House and the Senate, for building coalitions to get things done. You've heard about some of those things tonight. I've been successful because I work hard to bring people together. I am not a head-banging, chest-thumping, screaming politician of the type that often you see in media headlines and you see selling lots of newspapers. Many people sometimes choose to take that style as a definition of effective, but I don't. And I don't believe that's what the people of the 20th District want. They want someone who will work tirelessly for their communities, who will represent them, their constituents, and their futures. They want someone confident to seize opportunities and to care deeply about the results, who values the businesses and institutions that currently exist in their communities and can work to make them better, who understands working families, the stresses that they work under, and the importance and value of government help to the needy and vulnerable. I believe I am the best candidate to meet those expectations, and I am asking you for your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now we can applaud both candidates. And if we ask everyone to stay in their seats just briefly,